Okay, here we are again. It's Peter here. So today I'm going to do another story, guys. It's the thing is, I'm stuck at home like everybody else. The whole world is under lockdown. Generally, I'm not going to be making relationship videos for the rest of my life. That's not what my channel's about. Obviously, when I get back to Thailand, then I will start to make those kind of videos where I'm on location, I'm doing reviews, all them sort of videos. But at the moment, unfortunately, as I say, I'm stuck at home, so I've got to kind of try and keep the channel alive. And I do get requests for these stories, so we're going to do another one today. So this is a relationship story between an English guy once again and a Thai bar girl in Pattaya. Well, she was actually a go-go dancer. And this story was told to me by one of my very, very good friends who's actually living in Pattaya as we live and breathe right now. He hasn't come back. He's been out there for a number of years. The thing is, on this story, we have had to sort of join the dots a little bit, but we have researched it and I'm pretty sure we've got most of the story accurate as I'm going to tell it to you today. Her name was Dang. We're going to call her Dang for the sake of the story. The guy, his name was Peter, not me, another Peter. And I'll give you a little bit of background on both of them. So Dang, as I say, she came from Chiang Rai. She came down to Pattaya when she was very, very young. And to cut a long story short, Dang basically ended up working in a beer bar to start with. She went through quite a number of beer bars. Eventually, she ended up in a go-go bar, and that go-go bar is located on Walking Street. It's about halfway down. I'm not going to name the go-go bar, but it's about halfway down Walking Street. There's an alley, and right at the end of that alleyway, it's there. The go-go bar's been there for at least 20 years. It's still there today, and it's one of the better go-go bars in Pattaya. Dang at this time was 27, very, very good looking girl, very slim, no children. Peter, on the other hand, he was a school teacher. At the time this all happened, he was 48 years of age. He wasn't naive, but he was one of these guys, he had absolutely no experience with women. He had a childhood sweetheart at school. He married the first girlfriend he had, but unfortunately for Peter, his wife actually passed away with cancer a number of years before this story happened. So Peter actually ended up being on his own in this property. Unfortunately for Peter, he didn't really have a lot of opportunity to meet the opposite sex. He came from a very small seaside town in the north of England called Whitby, quite small. He taught in a local school there. There wasn't really any opportunities to meet women. Obviously, he was a bit too old to go out and try and pick up women from nightclubs and things like that. But what Peter did try a couple of times, he tried these not dating agencies, they're more kind of singles parties for people who are divorced or they've lost their partner, and you know, they have an opportunity to meet similar people to themselves. He tried that. He went to a couple of these parties, but it wasn't for him. He found that the women at these parties were all bitter. The majority of them were bitter. They had a chip on their shoulder. They'd come out of a bad relationship 9 times out of 10 and they just had an axe to grind. And Peter just didn't want anything to do with that. So he didn't, he didn't continue on that journey. What he did do, he started to do a bit of research on the internet like a lot of guys do. And as I said earlier, he was very naive as far as women were concerned. He didn't have a clue what goes on. He read a bit about Thailand and in particular Pattaya, and it looked very inviting. So Peter decided he was going to go to Pattaya. He was going to, he had school holidays coming up. He was going to pay a bit more for the ticket during the school holidays, but doesn't matter. He was going to go. And he didn't know what the scene was at all. He just knew Pattaya was a seaside resort in Thailand. He'd read various bits and pieces, but he hadn't really read too much about the bar scene or what goes on. But he thought, you know, throw caution to the wind, let's go out there. And that's what he did. He actually saved up. The school holidays came along. He booked his 12-hour flight with Eva Air, headed out there. He didn't even spend a night in Bangkok. He come out the airport, jumped straight in a taxi, and he headed down to Pattaya. He'd booked his hotel online, so when he got to his hotel, he was quite tired. He wasn't used to traveling. Decided to take a little nap, a little sleep, which he did. Woke up and had a shower, freshened up, decided he wanted to go out. He was here now in Thailand. It was very exciting. It was about 8 o'clock at night by this time. He was staying in a hotel past Soi 6, the other end of the beach road, as you come down from the Dolphin roundabout. Turn left and he was a few hundred meters along that way. Came out and it's quite quiet at that end of the beach, so it sank in quite slowly for him, because he came out of his hotel. He decided he was going to have a walk. He obviously, first thing he did was he stopped at the beach, had a look out. It's dark, but you know, you can hear the water, you can smell the sea, the sand, everything. And he starts walking down towards Walking Street, but he's a very long way from Walking Street. And obviously, as he's walking, it starts to get more and more lively, especially on the opposite side of the road. He's walking along the footpath next to the beach, and he's starting to see these bars appear, hundreds and hundreds of girls screaming and shouting, scantily dressed, and he's a bit confused to start with, but he carries on walking, gets about halfway down. I think he's gone past Soy 8 now. He's quite a way down, probably about a third of the way down Beach Road. Decides to take a drink at a bar, one of these outside bars, sits there, orders himself a beer, and within minutes a girl approaches him. He's flustered, he gets hot, he's embarrassed, he just doesn't know how to handle a girl, and he's never been approached in such a forward way as this girl is approaching him. Not only has she come up to him and started talking, but she's now got her hand on his thigh. She's very close to him, and he's actually embarrassed. It's too quick for him. So he's polite, he pays his bill, he leaves the bar and he carries on walking, and he has a think about that, what's happened there. But after a few minutes, he thought, you know, I quite enjoyed that actually, but it was just a shock to the system because he wasn't expecting it. But, you know, as I say, a bit further on down the road, he was thinking about it and thought, yeah, I quite enjoyed that. I might pop in there tomorrow on the way back. Anyway, carries on down. He wants to explore Pattaya first of all. He wants to see what Pattaya's got to offer. And he's walking down towards Walking Street. He eventually gets to Walking Street, and by now it's got to be 9:30, 9:45 in the evening. Walking Street is in full swing. He passes the tourist police at the beginning of Walking Street, and it's just a haze of bright lights and noise, music, girls screaming, and it's a bit much for Peter to take in on his first night. He's just looking around, so he thinks, well, I better stop somewhere and have a beer, and he does that. He stops in one of the smaller outside bars. It's a bar that's been there for a number of years. I think it's called P27 or P22, something like that. Been there for ever and a day. Stops there, has his second beer, and he's looking around, and you know, he's still taking it in. I mean, he just didn't expect this. But he's open to some female company, but he doesn't know how it works or how the transactions work. He's more into trying to find a girlfriend, so he hasn't really put a lot of thought into it, but he definitely doesn't know what goes on. So after a while, he's walking down, he finishes beer, pays his bill, and he carries on walking down Walking Street. And you know what it's like. All the touts are out. The girls are holding signs, Chang beer, only 120 baht, happy hour, all that sort of thing. And he gets to about halfway down Walking Street. On the left, there's an alleyway there that leads to a GoGo bar. I won't name it here, but it's a GoGo bar that's been there for over 25 years. It's still there. It's actually my favourite GoGo bar in Pattaya. But he gets to the end of the alleyway, and there's girls, and they're pulling him, and like, you know, half price, happy hour, come on. So they literally drag him by the arm all the way down the alleyway and basically shove him in the door. And he's too polite to refuse. He goes with them, and he goes into the GoGo bar, sits down. Takes him a few seconds for him to see what's happening. He's come from. It's very dark when he goes in. Sits down, orders a drink, and he has a look, and he just can't believe what he's saying, what he's seeing. There's about 30, 40 girls on stage. There's girls sitting around the bar. The majority of them are in bikinis. They're all in anywhere between 20 and 30, and the majority of them they have figures like they're just like all like models to him. That's what he thinks. And he looks around. He just can't believe how beautiful they are. So Peter's one of these guys, there's no way he's going to approach a girl. Even though he's in that environment, he won't go to a girl and say anything to her, offer her a drink, anything. He's too shy. And as I mentioned earlier, he just doesn't have the experience. So if you've never been in a GoGo bar, let me just explain to you very, very quickly what happens. There are 2 shifts of girls. Let's just say for easy numbers, there's 50 girls working in that GoGo bar. 25 of them will be on stage. 25 of them will be off the stage. They'll be talking to customers, sitting around, going to the bathroom, that sort of thing. They generally dance for around 15, 20 minutes, possibly a little bit longer. The mama-san will give the signal. Those girls will come off stage, and the next lot of girls will go on stage, and they'll do their little shift, and that goes on all night. So it's interchangeable. You've got half the girls mixing with the customers, half the girls on stage. When they change, that's how it works basically. So Peter's sitting there enjoying his drink, and it's shift change, and the girls come off, and he's sitting there, and this lady comes up to him. At the time, he didn't know, but it was Dang. Dang asks the guy, she'd never seen him before, Peter. She says, "Can I sit with you on your table?" Of course, Peter's not going to say no. He's quite surprised at this, to be honest. He didn't. He's never been approached by a woman before. She's absolutely stunning. She's sitting opposite. He says the first thing that comes into his head, "Would you like a drink?" Of course, she's not going to say no, is she? She gets her lady's drink. She comes back with her little her little glass of cola with a little straw sticking out the top. Starts speaking to Peter. Peter explains he's never been to Thailand. He's on holiday. It's his first time. He's from England. And Dang's taking this all in. And as I've said to you in many other videos, guys, they're very, very good at sizing somebody up. She's listening. She's taking it all in. And she's making a mind up about Peter. At the end of all this, Dang has decided that Peter is very, very gullible and an absolutely brilliant target for her. She goes on to explain to Peter that she's only just come to Pattaya. She works in the bar. She doesn't go with customers. Peter didn't understand what that bit was about, so she had to explain. She said she's only been down there for a few weeks. She sits with customers and she dances. The bar pay her a salary for dancing, and she makes the rest of her money up by getting drinks from customers, and then she goes home to her little room every night. That's what she told Peter. Peter, no reason to doubt her. He thought, yeah, it all makes sense. And so he sat there, and to cut a long story short, what actually happened on the first night, she explained how it worked. She had to go back to dance. She's going to be up there 20 minutes and she'd come back down, and she could speak to Peter again. So Peter was fascinated by this, and he was, you know, he looked at her dance and he just couldn't believe it. He looked at her and he thought, what the heck is that girl seeing in me? I mean, look, guys, we know what it's all about, but he didn't know. He's looking at her thinking, there's this stunning girl and she wants to spend her time with me. He really didn't know. So he's sitting there watching her dance. Eventually shift changes again. She comes back down and she doesn't want to move in too quickly. So she doesn't say anything about coming back to your hotel or short time or anything like that. She just wants to take her time about this. You know, they know how to manipulate a situation, and that's exactly what Dang was going to do. She'd made up her mind that Peter was, you know, he was naive. He'd just come out. He told her absolutely everything, and she wasn't going to move in too fast, as I say. So the evening continued, and basically what Peter did, because he was so happy this girl was sitting with him, he just sat there and he just kept ordering himself a beer. So Dang would go up and dance 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it was. Shift change, she'd come back down, she'd go straight to his table, sit with him, buy her another drink. So this went on all night until about 1 o'clock in the morning. He got very, very tired. He had to say his goodbyes. But by this time, he'd bought her probably 6, 7 drinks. So she was very, very happy. He left. He said he'd be back the following night. And I think Dan probably got bar fined and went off with somebody else, as they always do. So Peter goes back to his hotel, has a good night's sleep, wakes up refreshed, well rested, goes down for his breakfast and has a think about what happened last night in this GoGo bar with Dang. Hasn't got a clue. Absolutely clueless. He don't know what's happened last night. He just thinks, I went into this bar, this beautiful lady, she probably wants to meet a foreign husband, something like that. And he convinced himself that's all it was. He decided he was going to go back to the GoGo bar. She said to him, don't come too early. It doesn't really start until sort of 9, 10. You know, if you come too early, what it was with Dang, she didn't come into work till later on anyway, so she didn't want to risk Peter getting picked up by one of her girlfriends in the bar, because that can happen. So she was playing it smart, and she basically said, don't come in till about 9, 10. So Peter headed down to, I nearly said the name of the GoGo bar there. He headed down to the GoGo bar, and the same sort of thing. She was dancing, she came off, bought him a drink, and by this time Dang thought, right, well, I've got to progress this situation. I've got to make it move a little bit more towards my end goal. So by about midnight, Dang comes off stage, she's sitting with Peter, and she says, look, do you like me? Straight out. Peter didn't know what to say. Obviously, he did like her, but in the end, he says, yeah, you know, I do like you. And she said, well, look, I like you as well. And the thing is, why don't we meet after, you know, after I finish dancing the next set, I can actually come out with you. We can go and eat something. We can go and have a drink, whatever you want. And the only thing is you have to pay the bar fine. So Dang explained to Peter, she says, look, I'm employed by the bar and I'm not allowed to leave until the end of my shift. But if somebody pays my bar fine to take me out and take me for dinner or something like that, then I'm allowed to leave the bar. He pays the bar fine. Now, again, I want to stress this point. Dang is very clever. She's been doing this for a lot of years. She knows how foreigners tick, what's going on in their mind. She doesn't want to blow it. She's now got a guy who's potentially worth a lot of money. So she's not going to move too fast. So Peter pays the bar fine. Dang gets dressed. They leave the bar together. And Dang says to Peter, what do you want to do? Hoping that Peter will say, let's go back to my room. But he doesn't, because he's naive and he's far too shy to do that. So Dang said, well, I'm a little bit hungry. I can show you a restaurant on the second road. It's they serve Thai and Western food. It's very nice. Let's go there. Peter agrees. They jump in the BART bus, not very far. And they go to one of these open restaurants and they have a meal together. So Dang and Peter have a very enjoyable meal. They don't rush it. They sit there for about an hour and a half. They have a few drinks. And eventually it gets to the end of the evening. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And Peter says goodnight to Dang. He's a real gentleman. He just doesn't know what's going on. As I say, Dang's clever. She doesn't want to blow it. So she says she's had a very pleasant time with Peter. Dang asked Peter, will you be coming to my bar tomorrow to see me? Maybe I can leave a bit earlier. We can spend the evening together. For sure, Peter was going to go to her bar. So Dang said to her goodnight. She jumped on the back of a motorbike and away she went. Peter was thrilled to bits, went back to his hotel. By this time, it's pretty safe to say Peter had fallen in love with the first girl he actually met in Pattaya. Now, normally with these stories, what happens, I get lots and lots of comments at the end saying the guy was a mug, he had too much money, he was stupid. He'd never been to Thailand before, guys. You've got to understand that. So, remember the first time you went to Thailand if you've been there lots of times. So Peter went back to his hotel, had a very pleasant sleep. Got up the next day, explored Pattaya, went around a few of the, one or two of the malls, went one or two of the local markets, enjoyed all that. And the time came, it was evening again, back to the GoGo bar, quite early, 9:30. And he decided that, Dang came to speak and she said, look, I don't have to dance all night. If you pay my bar fine again, we can have an evening together. And that's what happened. Peter paid Dang's bar fine. They left. They had a very pleasant evening. They went around a few bars. And by this time, Dang decided it was time to make her move. And she actually said to Peter, she said, look, I don't want to be too, Thai girls don't normally talk like this, but I really like you. You're a gentleman. You're a good guy. I don't have a boyfriend. How long are you staying here for? Just to clarify that point, he was there for a couple of weeks, I think. And, she wanted to sort of stay with him. And she suggested and said, look, why don't you pay the bar for the full 2 weeks that you're here, or the rest of the time you're here, 10 days, whatever was left. And I can stay with you. My room is very, very far away, but if you like, I can stay in your hotel room. She no talk of the same bed or lovemaking or anything like that. She just put it in that way. She said, if you pay the bar, we can spend 2 weeks together and I'll stay in your room. And obviously Peter was thrilled to bits. He was like, he had his holiday money with him and he expected to spend a couple of £1,000, $3,000, whatever. It wasn't an issue. The money wasn't an issue. He was on vacation. He wasn't living there. And he just couldn't believe his luck. He was like, she's going to stay with me. I can keep her to myself for 2 weeks. Brilliant. So he asked Dang, how much do you need to, stay out of the bar until I leave Pattaya, sort of thing. And whether she paid the bar or all that, we don't know. But anyway, she stayed with Peter, and the rest of the vacation, it was Dang and Peter together. They spent every day together and every evening together. So eventually the inevitable happened. They did end up very, very close in the room, if you can understand what I mean. And Peter actually was really in love with Dang. I mean, he didn't have a clue, as I keep saying. I have to keep saying it because he really didn't have a clue what it was all about. He just knew he'd come to Pattaya, he'd met this stunning girl, and she liked him a lot. She was staying with him. And as far as he was concerned, he wasn't paying a girl in that way. It was more to get her out of the bar. He understood that she was committed to that bar, and she had her ways of getting payment out of him. She wouldn't ask for a single transaction on a daily basis. She'd come out with the stories that they do. And because Peter was very naive and he'd never been to Thailand, he believed everything. It was, I need 3,000 baht to send to my family because my mother's sick. Can you give me 600 baht for the taxi? It was basically everything that she said, which any other guy would laugh in her face at because they know what it's all about. Peter believed it. As I say, he wasn't streetwise, and he gave her that money. So after the 2 weeks, it was time for Peter to head back up to Bangkok in the taxi. Dang put on the performance of a lifetime, tears everywhere, and she was telling him how much she was going to miss him. And she said to Peter, do you think you'll be coming back anytime soon? And he hadn't planned to, but by now he was thinking, yeah, I definitely am going to come back soon. So Dang said, let's keep in touch. And when you go back to the UK, call me. I'll be around. And all I'm going to do is I have to keep dancing in the bar because that's how I make money. But, rest assured, it is just dancing and drinks with customers, and I go home every night. But I'll be thinking of you, and you're my boyfriend. Peter was very, very happy, got in the taxi, back to Bangkok, headed to the airport, got his flight back to the UK, and went back to his job and his home. So Peter's now back in the UK. He's contacting Dang all the time, most days actually, and he can see Dang on his phone, so he's thrilled to bits with that. Dang's giving him every single story, all the stories that I talk about in all the videos about the scams and how the girls want to extract money from you. Most guys are wise enough not to send the money, or they know all the stories, but Peter doesn't know. Every time she asks for money, he sends that money. And don't forget, Peter's not, he's not poor. He's not on a pension or anything like that. He's still working as a school teacher, but Peter was sending Dang money regular, and it was going to be 3 months to the next holiday. This time he decided he was going to stay in Pattaya for a month. I think he had 6 weeks holiday. He was going to have a week before he went and a week when he came back, but he decided to stay a month. He got a lot more cash together because he wanted to treat his girlfriend Dang, and he decided that the sky's the limit. He was going to take a good lot of cash with him. School holidays come, books his flight. He's booked his flight. He's on his way to Thailand, down to Pattaya, meets up with Dang. He's got a month to spend with Dang. And I won't go through every day, every week what happened. You know how it goes, guys. They went to the cinema, they went to restaurants, they sat on the beach, all the normal sort of things. And the days passed to weeks, and the weeks eventually passed to the full month that he's there. Towards the end of his vacation, the 4th week, he sits down with Dang, and he'd had to think about it, and he thinks, I don't want to be without this girl. I can't keep going away and coming back like that. He still doesn't know, guys. He still doesn't know what it's all about. He doesn't realise Dang's out when he's not there, she's out every night with different guys, and he's just pretty naive about that. So he's thought about it, and he's thought, I don't want to go back to the UK, spend the next however long it was on my own, and Dang's here in Pattaya. I've got to somehow work out a way where we can be together. Peter sits down with Dang, and he says to Dang, he says, look, I love you deeply. I want to spend my life with you. I've got a nice house in the UK. I'm a school teacher. I've got a decent job. I've got a car. I want to take you back to the UK and marry you. What do you think? Dang was hesitant. She said, let me think about it, and I'll let you know tomorrow. And that's what happened. They parted. Dang came back to meet Peter the following day. She says, I love you, but I don't want to go to the UK. I've got a family here. My mother's sick, and I need to be in Thailand. But is there any chance you could come out here more and more? So I'm going to let you in on a little secret right here, guys. The reason Dang didn't want to leave is because she had a Thai boyfriend. She'd been with him a number of years. He was a lowlife. He was living in Pattaya. They lived in the same room, but obviously the Thai guy didn't have a problem with Dang going out with customers. Why? Because he didn't work. He drank every day. He met his friends. They gambled. He basically took money from Dang. Dang was in love with his Thai guy. It's quite normal sometimes with these bar girls. So what she'd do, she'd go out to work. She'd give a lot of money to the Thai guy. He was quite happy for her to go out with these foreigners because, as I say, he was gambling, he was drinking, he was having a nice, easy life, and it was on the back of Dang. But that was the real reason why Dang didn't want to leave Pattaya. Peter wasn't very happy about it. He knew he was going back in a few days, and he told Dang, okay, I understand, you've got to be near your family. Let me have a think about this. I'm going back in a few days, and I'll have a good think about what we should do about this situation. So again, Peter was now back in the UK and he was contacting Dang regular. So Dang one day suggested, she said, look, Peter, I've got an idea. When can you next come over to Thailand? As soon as possible. Peter thought about it and he thought, well, probably another 6 weeks I can get over there again. So Dang says, look, why don't I look for a room for us? Instead of you paying all this money out on a hotel, why don't I find a room for me and you, and then you can send me the deposit and the monthly rent before you come out. If you can send me some more money, I'll get all the kitchenware and everything we need for it, TV, everything. And when you're here, we can live there together. It will save you money on hotels and you've got a base and you don't have to keep bringing as many clothes over to Thailand every time you come. You can leave things here, razors and toothbrushes, everything. You can have a set here and a set back home. That way you can travel more lightly and it should work out for both of us. Peter was stunned. He thought, what a good idea. It makes perfect sense. Now, obviously, when he sent this money for the deposit, I don't know how much it was, but he sent money for a deposit for a small apartment or a room with a shower room on the side. A month's rent or 2 months' rent, whatever it was at the time. She told Peter, I need to buy TV, I need to buy kitchen utensils. She gave Peter the sum that she needed. Peter didn't question it. He sent the money to Dang. Obviously, Dang made a profit from that transaction because she would have told Peter it was a lot more than what it actually was. And of course, they don't give receipts in small shops. That's what she would have told Peter. But Dang, good to her word, she did get a little room. It was north of Pattaya, the opposite way to Jumtien. So if you went down the second road, you get to the Dolphin Roundabout, instead of turning left to the beach, carry on straight, and it was kind of down that area. In that area, it's a bit more quiet. I used to have an apartment down there, actually. It's quite nice. So Dan gets this room. I don't know what it costs. I didn't get that much information. She buys all the kitchen utensils and all the bits and bobs. She knows Peter's coming back. There's no way Peter's not coming back. She could have just kept the money and disappeared, I suppose. But as I said earlier, Dang's very, very clever. She's very streetwise. She's been around the block more than a few times. And she knew long term, she's going to get a lot more money out of Peter if she does what she said she was going to do. So that's what she did. She got the room and Peter came back out to Thailand, came to the room, thrilled to bits. As far as he was concerned, he was living with her. We won't go through all the nitty gritty detail about what they did while he was there this time. But basically, as far as in Peter's mind, Dang was now his girlfriend. They had an apartment together. He said, look, Dang, I'd love to come over here full time, but I got a job. I get lots and lots of holidays, as school teachers do. They get the same holidays as the kids, near enough. He explained that to her. He said, look, I can't leave my job. That's my income. But, what I can do is I can come over every chance I get. And now you've got this apartment, you've got somewhere to live. And, I'll leave you here when I go back to the UK. Now, unfortunately for Peter, what he didn't know was obviously when he wasn't there, Dang was using this apartment, but she wasn't using it for just going home and sleeping every night. We'll leave it at that. But I think you can understand what I'm saying. So we're going to accelerate the story quite a few months forward now. A long way forward, because Peter, by this time now, at this stage of the story, he'd been back to Thailand probably half a dozen times, 6 or 7 times. I can't remember exactly how many times, but every time he came back, it was the same thing. He came back, he went to the apartment. Dang knew when he was coming back, so she'd put on her best performance. She went to the airport to meet him a couple of times, and she put on a great show. She would have got an Oscar, I would imagine, for her performance. On more than one occasion, but Peter was convinced that Dang was, she was his girlfriend. She was living in that apartment, and as far as Peter was concerned, he was onto a good thing. He got this beautiful Thai lady, a lot younger than him, and he was content. The only thing was Peter was now starting to realise that he was getting through quite a lot of money. He went back through his bank statements online, and he realised a lot of money. Because he was finding it quite difficult now. He'd always had an easy time paying his bills back home, but he was having to watch it now. And he went through all his bank statements online, and he did realise, he thought, well, I am sending a lot of money now out to Thailand on a monthly basis. And something I better bring into the story, after a while, Dang had said to him, look, I don't want to work in the bar anymore. Why don't you give me money to live on, and I won't work in the bar anymore? And you won't have to pay the bar fines every time you come here, but I do need money, and I need money to send up to my family. And she explained how it worked. And what she said to Peter, she said, look, I need 50,000 baht a month to survive. Peter couldn't really afford that. He did a bit of negotiation. He felt a bit embarrassed, actually. But the figure they come up with was 30,000 baht. Dang was happy. She said, yep, that's fine. I won't work in the bar. And Peter was sending her 30,000 baht a month, which is a lot of money, guys, for a bar girl. You know what happens? I mean, when he went back to the UK, she was still working in the GoGo bar. She was still going off with customers. She was still getting drinks bought for her. She had her Thai boyfriend, and she had the best of both worlds, actually. She had the same job, and she was getting money from Peter. But as I keep saying, they're very, very clever, and Dang's cogs were going round in her head, and she was trying to scheme and think, well, I've got this guy around my wrapped around my finger. How can I get even more money out of him? So by this time, Dang thought, it's time to go in for the kill. It's big money time. You know, she'd been with Peter for quite a long time now. She'd already received lots and lots of payments from Peter. Peter was none the wiser, except he was starting to wonder about whether he could stretch to her budget every month, because he was shelling out a lot by this time. But as I say, Dang decided it's time to go in for the kill. It's big money time now. She'd built up the confidence with Peter. He didn't know any better, and now was the time to go for that big payday. She sat down with Peter and she said, look, Peter, I'm not very happy. I'm your girlfriend. You know, we're like man and wife. But it's not normal. You're spending more time in the UK than you are here. And I don't want to continue like this. You know, either you love me and you want to stay with me, or you don't love me and there's no point in carrying on the relationship together. Again, Peter said, well, look, you know, I'll marry you. I'll take you back to the UK. I've got a nice house. I've got a car. I've got a good job. And, you know, we know the reasons why Dang didn't want to leave Thailand. She basically said to Peter again, look, family come first in Thailand. I'm not leaving my family. I'm not leaving my sick mother. I'm staying here. This is how it is. And you either love me or you don't love me. You think about it. They had dinner. Peter was pondering on this. What's he going to do? He didn't want to lose Dang. He was madly in love with her. So he said to Dang, he said, well, you know, if I finish my work in the UK, I'm a teacher. What am I going to do? How am I going to survive? You know, I don't know how I'm going to make money in Thailand. I mean, it's all very well saying, you know, come and live here, but I need to make money. So Dang said to Peter, look, why don't you quit your job for now? You've got a house, you've got a car. Why don't you sell your car? And this is why the car becomes quite important, because Peter had bought this car brand new, little saloon. I don't know exactly what it was. He bought it brand new. He'd paid it off over 5 years. He'd just, as it happens, come to the end of the 5-year term. The car was now his. It was worth about £10,000, £9,000. He could sell that and convert that into cash. And I think he got about 8,500 baht for it. There was other assets that he didn't really need. So Dang had persuaded him and said, look, come and live out here for 3 months, maybe, see how you like it. You've got a car, sell that, get some assets together. I'm sure you got some savings. And that's what happened. I mean, Peter sold his car. He sold some various bits and pieces he had in his property. And I think he went out to Thailand with about £20,000. It didn't take long for Dang to go through that money. A few months, it was gone. You know, he gave her access to the banks, basically. And, you know, she went through the money and it all looked legit. But the money came to an end. Time to go back to the UK again, and Dang said, look, Peter, this is ridiculous now. You know, do you want to come over here or not? I've had an idea. If you sell your house, what we can do, we can open a beer bar. Beer bars always work in Pattaya. They never fail. That's what she told him anyway. And she took him to a beer bar that had a for sale sign on it in Thai. I think it was in Soi 6. And they went to look at this beer bar. And Dang basically said, look, we have to pay key money to move in. It's 1 million baht, which I think is about £25,000. This is the rent. You know, we need to buy this, we need to buy that. I know some girls. But once this bar's up and running, we can live above it. It's a shop house, and, you know, so we can live for free. And if you come over full time, finish your job, we'll open this bar, I'll run it. And a good beer bar, if it's busy every night, we can put about £3,000 a month, or 100,000 baht, she was saying, in our pockets. And, you know, Peter went away and he had to have a think about this. Peter agreed. He told Dang he'd do it. Dang, sorry. He said, okay, I'll go back and sell my house if you think it's really going to work. What I'll do, I need to go back to the UK, obviously. I'll put my house on the market for slightly less, so that way it should sell quite quickly. As soon as the funds go through, I'll come back to Thailand, we'll take that bar on and we'll take it from there. And Dang was thrilled to bits. Inside she was laughing, but she knew the score. Peter still didn't know anything. He didn't really have any friends that he could that could warn him about this. He went back to the UK, he put his house on the market. Now Peter's mother, she was 89, God bless her, she lived in Whitby as well, and you know, she was fairly close by. So what he thought, well, if I sell the property, I'll get the cash in the bank, I can go and stay at mother's house and you know, take it from there, then I can head back over to Thailand full time. So that's what Peter did. He put his house on the market, everything he owned, he put it on the up for sale. His house eventually did sell. I think it was about, at that time, about £130,000, I believe. That money was sitting in an account in the UK. He told Dang. Dang was thrilled to bits. The following day, Peter had now sold his house, by the way. He'd got the money and he was now staying at his mother's house, his 89-year-old mother's house, temporarily. He told his mother his plans and, you know, everything was green for go, as they say. The following day, Dang called Peter and said, look, Peter, we're going to lose this bar. If you don't send over, you know, most of the money, there's somebody else interested. A guy from Germany, he's been here with his Thai wife and they're seriously wanting to buy it. I know the owner. The owner doesn't want to stab me in the back. What they've said is they'll hold it for another 48 hours. If I can come up with the money, then the bar's ours. What do you think? Peter, naive as I keep saying, he thought, yeah, well, I've sold the house. This is what we plan to do. You know, yeah, let's do it. What's your bank account details? He sent the majority of the money he got for his house over to her bank. She said, as soon as the money's here, I'm going to pay the key money. I'm going to go out and start putting deposits down on all the equipment. And, you know, we'll take it from there. You book your flight out and, you know, we'll press on, as it were, to open the bar. Yep, sounds good. Money was sent to Dang's account. Peter was very excited about the prospect of going to live in Thailand full time. And he explained to his mother what was happening. He didn't have a lot of money left now. He had a few £1,000s left that he'd held back. I think about £5,000 he'd held back for his air ticket and just to see him on his way, as it were. He couldn't get hold of Dang. It was really weird because she wasn't answering her phone, but Peter just put it down to Dang being very busy with a bar. So, you know, he knew she was going to be in the room anyway, their room. And he thought, well, you know, I'll get a flight as soon as possible. And he was lucky. He got a flight the following day, packed the majority of his things up, had to pay a little bit extra for the extra weight. Didn't mind that. He had the money put by. And he headed back to Thailand, to Pattaya, and still couldn't get hold of Dang. Really strange. He was phoning. But again, Peter didn't. He wasn't a suspicious guy. He just put it down to Dang being very busy organising the bar. He was very excited, Peter. Gets to Pattaya, heads over to the room, puts his key in the door, lets himself in. Everything looks normal, but Dang's not there. So he decides he's going to ask around and see if he can find her. And I think you guys know where this is going. Dang wasn't around. She wasn't in Pattaya. He went out. He went to all their usual restaurants, bars where they hung out, all that sort of thing. Have you seen Dang? Can't get hold of her? No, nobody had seen her. Nobody had seen her for weeks, and they didn't know where she was. So to cut a long story short, she'd had him, basically. Peter had sent all his money from the sale of his house over to Dang's bank account. Dang and her Thai boyfriend, they headed back to Chiang Rai for a while. They wanted to have be low key. There's nothing Peter could do about it. He didn't ask her for ID or a passport. There were no written contracts. As far as he was concerned, he took it the same way as a lot of guys have been caught out in exactly the same way. I've seen this story happen lots of times where guys have sent the money over. Again, I'll probably get comments on this video saying the guy was stupid. How could he have done that? But it happens, guys. And that was it. That was it, basically. So you're probably asking your next question, if you had a question, your next question would be, where is Peter today? I'll tell you exactly where Peter is. He managed to get his old job back in the school. He's still a school teacher, still a history teacher. He lives with his 89-year-old mother. He's got a room in her house. He has no assets. He's got no money in the bank. He lives from day to day, but that's how it goes. And, you know, again, guys, as I'm always saying to you, if you go to Thailand and you meet the girl of your dreams, just be really, really careful.